Hey, Joseph. It's Bloodlaw. Hope everything's going good. Talk to you later, Joey. Bye.
James Richard DuPont, 1937-2023. The sudden death of my oldest brother Richard breaks my heart. He lived to a reasonable old age, but why not, as he took very good care of himself, and his wife Judith was a very good influence. His death is even sadder because he is no longer here to care for his soulmate Judith. As a kid, I watched Richard and my father communicate with radio operators all over the world. Richard had a tremendous arm and could throw a rock and a string over most trees. But sometimes he used a bow and arrow to get those strings over the highest trees. Once that was done, they pulled ropes to eventually pull the antenna wires up. I remember Richard getting zapped just from the static electricity from those long wire antennas. We made kites together, and my moment of glory was to hold the string tight when my brother made the critical knot. Both brothers were great skaters. Both my brother Robert and Richard were always there to tighten the laces on my skates and untangle the mess I made on my fishing reel on the Passaic River. Robert loved hockey, but Richard had racing skates. Both could skate backwards in circles at high speed. In the winter, Richard would take me to my piano lessons and then leave to skate at the pond near the fire department on River Road, Chatham. I remember when I did something wrong and my mother asked Richard to give me a spanking. Well, we went into the bedroom and Richard faked a spanking, and we returned only to have Mom somehow know that I was not spanked. So we had to do it again. It was no big deal, but at least I knew my brother was looking out for me. I remember both Richard and his dear friend Fred Zonfrilli always doing interesting things. They set up a whole exercising setup in the attic with weights. They built Heathkit radios and stereo amplifiers and 15-inch speaker cabinets. They bought a 4¼ inch reflector telescope from Edmund Scientifics in Burlington, New Jersey. And I saw the rings of Saturn for the first time. He played all kinds of 33 1/3 RPM records of sound effects of trains and jets and every kind LP record with every style of music. And of course Spike Jones, who took pride setting back music 5,000 years, and the Old Philosopher records, to name a few. Both brothers were into Ford Model A's and T's. Richard had one with a plush custom interior and a special cam. Richard had the thrill of his lifetime when Robert towed him in a Model A with the engine put into the trunk. They used some heavy-duty, excellent, flexible tubing to tow it. During the towing with the motor in the trunk, the front wheels came off the road and the car started to swing left and right on the road. Robert thought his brother was just playing around and sped up. Well, the tubing snapped and Richard shot off the road into a field unscathed and cheated death. He loved sports cars like a Triumph TR3 and then a Chevy Classic Corvette Stingray and a Carmen Ghia. He definitely risked his life, teaching me to drive a 4-speed Volkswagen Bug up and down hills with sharp turns in Sterling, New Jersey. He bought me my first electric guitar from someplace on Route 22 in Union. Richard was a technology junkie. When it came to bicycles, tennis rackets, wristwatches, he had to have the latest. And I, as the benefactor, got his current generation model. I was tickled pink. I always felt he was blessed to be living in these times, to have access to the latest technology. All three of us boys shared one bedroom with bunk beds. Ever fall off a bunk bed? One day Richard's alarm clock went off prematurely when he was working late hours at Thermoplastic Processes Inc., and he threw it at the wall and it exploded. To me, all those gears were tops I could spin and have fun. Seeing Richard in his Navy uniform was a sight to behold. As it turned out, both he and his father, James M. DuPont, were both third-class petty officers, radio operators in the Naval Reserves. It's shame that no one knew this until after our father died. Their radio licenses, my father's call was W2DEO, Dog Easy Over. And Richard's was K2CYT, Charlie Yesterday Thomas. Allowed us to talk to Richard when he lived in Australia. We had a 45-minute window every day on 20 meters single sideband to talk to him. My brother took me to a Navy radio station in Sterling, New Jersey, where he communicated with other Navy stations as a drill of some sort. Eventually, my brother Richard was able to use my dad's call after our father died. My dad and brothers spent a lot of time on the steps going down to the driveway in Chatham. One night my dad, Richard, and I were burning a stump off of 77 Myersville Road in Chatham, New Jersey, where we were burning up an apple tree stump. All three of us witnessed a rolling crater-pocked asteroid just kissing our atmosphere and getting cherry red and then going duller as it skipped out of the atmosphere heading northeast. Richard and I have confirmed what we saw many times. I posted it on YouTube. Had that impacted heading up Long Island, we would not be having this conversation. I often think of my cousin Dr. Joe Polara, Uncle Lewis's son, for teaching me how to play tennis in Hoboken. Brother Richard always triumphed in tennis. His ability to play in the heat was amazing. He was about 13 years older than me, and he never folded no matter how many games we played or how hot it got. I was barely standing up. We would sometimes play my brother Robert. Both of them excelled in tennis and bowling. Richard was very computer savvy and helped me understand arrays for data storage when I was learning BASIC. Perhaps getting me into programming spilled over to both of my sons in excelling at that with newer computer languages. Richard and I spent many an evening listening to smooth jazz on the FM radio as we played countless games of chess. We both played the 6-string guitar. Our dad played the ukulele and the tenor guitar. Richard, like my sister Maggie, were adventurous in leaving the nest. Richard ended up in Australia as he saw America heading where it is now. He and I often spoke about how we are actually happy to have lived in a time before the media was completely controlled, and we questioned the integrity of our governmental agencies. We both lost a son which no parent should have to deal with. Such a loss made me fear death far less than I previously did. Keeping up where Richard lived could be challenging from his move to Little Switzerland, North Carolina, and then to New Mexico and Utah. He even visited my land in Utah, which is an hour from where he lived. Sometimes he pushed the limits, as I recall, by camping with Mylene, Corinne, and Lauren in the winter at Round Valley Reservoir. Richard also was blessed with his son-in-law Joe Paslushny, who bonded with by him by driving sophisticated sports cars at high speeds out west. His visits by Violet, Mylene, Corinne, and Lauren and grandchildren brightened his day. Being at his 80th birthday was something I will never forget. We spoke about various aspects of our immune systems during the COVID shutdowns. Both he and my niece Meg shared the names of probiotics and vitamins they were taking. In recent years, we always ended our conversations with, "I love you." This started from my sister Maggie, and so when I ended my conversation with Robert, Claudette, Maggie, and Richard, that's what we said. I can thank my sister Maggie for that gift. Reflecting on my big brother today is proof that I have been truly blessed by having so many wonderful memories of him. So rest in peace, my dear brother, along with his namesake, my firstborn son named after him.